So in this episode of Viral Rewind, we're going to look at the Appdermacro virus for Microsoft Word, specifically Microsoft Word 6.0, and we'll see why that is when we look at Appder's macro code. Now, I'll admit I've been wanting to do something on Appder for a while, but the problem is that I can't get any copy of the actual Appder document that's got the infection with the macro code. It's not in any of the repositories that I have, and I can't seem to find it in any repository online or even by itself. I can pretty much find everything else, but I can't seem to find Appder for some reason. So I had to look it up and actually see the macro code, through a video or images, and take the screenshots of that and put it into a text thing and actually pull the text out and then fix all the errors in that and basically rewrite the Appder macro code here on this computer with Microsoft Word 6.0 and running Windows for Workers 3.11. And it behaves just like Appder is supposed to, but it is missing two other macros that are kind of meant to work in tandem with it. But overall, the actual Appder macro itself does what it's supposed to if you have the actual infected document. So we've got my copy, I guess you could say, of Appder.doc open here with its macro. So we'll go into the macro part under Tools. And we have Appder and AutoClose, and AutoOpen would normally be here as well. AutoClose and AutoOpen being the two macros I was saying that it has to work in tandem with it because those run the Appder macro when you open and close documents. But we're going to just look at the Appder code here because, again, that's what the macro virus is about. So we have the code open in the editor here, and there are two distinct sections of the Appder macro virus. The first section here is for infecting Microsoft Word's global template. So it checks to see if AutoClose and Appder macros are already present in the system there in the macro menu, and if they are not, it assumes the system is not infected. So what it will do is it will copy both the Appder and AutoClose macros from the infected document into Word's global template, calling it global Appder and global AutoClose. This way, subsequently afterwards, any documents that you open, close, create, etc. in Microsoft Word will now automatically get infected with Appder's macro virus, and then it can spread onto other systems that way when you open the infected document up on a system that hasn't been infected by Appder yet. So that's its infection routine for affecting Word's global template spreading. The second part is more of what the Appder macro virus is about. And what it does here, and this ties into why it's specifically with Microsoft Word 6.0, it's looking in WinWord6.ini in the Windows directory, and it's using that to create a string. So it goes into WinWord6.ini under the Microsoft Word subsection for the header NTTHNTA, and it's looking for a value there, and that value, if it is, will then get put into a variable called sales, and then it will increment it by 1. So it will if there's a number there, it will add 1 to it, and then in the following one it actually writes the string to that, again in the WinWord6.ini file under the Microsoft Word heading under this value that we talked about, and then it will put whatever the result is here. And then after it does that, it checks the value there again, and the reason it does that is because it's wanting to see if that value has reached 20. And then if it does, it runs a little deletion payload, but before it does that, it sets the number back to 1, and we'll see why this is in a minute. So it runs this little deletion payload here where it deletes all the .exe and .com files out of the C:/doc directory. Now, it's commonly believed that this is a typo by the virus author, meaning the actual DOS directory, DOS, and not DOC. And then it's also going to delete all the .exe files out of the C:/Windows directory. Now, it will try to also delete all the true type fonts and regular fonts out of the Windows System directory. However, on here it tends to hang up right here. Now, I don't know if it will, say if you had Microsoft Word 6.0 on Windows 95, which is 32-bit OS, if the macro will actually run these two lines here, because it always holds up here on Windows 3.1x systems like this, which are 16-bit. May or may not be compatible with this file extension TTF, which is for TrueType fonts. But it will still always run these three lines here, so it will still cause quite a bit of problems with file deletions there. And again, as I say, it sets this number back to 1 that it's checking for up here after it reaches 20. And when you think about it, the obvious reason for that is if AppDer deletes all these executable files in these two directories, and then you go back later and restore all those deleted files, but you don't get rid of the AppDer infection, well, obviously after 20 iterations again, you will go back and delete all the files that you've just restored. So until you get rid of the infection, it's just going to keep deleting these files after 20 iterations. So let's go ahead and look at WinWord6.ini before we run the macro for the first time. So here's WinWord6.ini out of the Windows directory. Here's the Microsoft Word subheading that is looking to put its variable in. Right now its value is not in there because we have not run AppDer yet. So let's go ahead and close this so it's not in use. Go back to the macro and let's run it one time. So it's run once, so again the first thing it did was check if it's within Word's global template, and if it wasn't, it put it in there, and then it got ahead and created its entry in WinWord6.ini, which if we look is now present right here. So it now has this NTTH and TA equals 1, and so that should iterate +1 each time it runs. So let's close it again, go back to Microsoft Word and run this again. And again, if you had AutoOpen and AutoClose here, it would be automatically again running the AppDer macro every time we open and closed a document in Word. So we're just simulating that by running the AppDer macro that way. Go back to WinWord6.ini, and now it has a value of 2. So that's essentially how the AppDer macro virus works, up until this reaches 19. So now we're going to look at the deletion potential. So close out of that, let's save it. And you see in our Windows directory we have all our .exes still in perfect condition. We'll also go up to our doc directory, which for now is basically just an identical copy of what is all in the DOS directory, and all our .com and .exe files are all present there. Minimize that, come back to Word, and let's run this again. So now it will have iterated that value up to 20, and I can see that there's quite a bit more hard drive activity on the computer now. So obviously it's running this file deletion section down here. And as I said earlier, it hangs up here with a path file access error at line 75 where it has this .ttf file extension. So it doesn't delete any of the fonts out of the system directory at this point, but it still ends up running all these deletion payloads up here, deleting all the exe and .coms out of the doc directory and the Windows directory, getting rid of all the .exes. Pull our file manager back up, and our doc directory is looking a lot more empty than it did a little moment ago. So there's no .com or .exe files here, and we go to the Windows directory, and the Windows directory is also looking a little smaller because all the .exes have been deleted out of that except for win.com, because it does not delete .com files from the Windows directory. So all the applications are now obviously in Windows 3.11 here broken. So the file manager doesn't work, control panel will not work, PIF editor will not work. Obviously write.com is gone, so we can't even look at the Windows README. But obviously MS Office is unaffected because it's still there. Go to the MS-DOS prompt just to verify. And we don't have the 60 Hz refresh, so we're not going to be able to see anything there. If we tell it to display any .exes, well, there's none in that Windows directory. Go to the doc directory, look for any .com files. There is none present. Look for any .exes. There is also none present. So that is basically it for the AppderMacro macro virus, again specifically for Microsoft Word 6.0.